So welcome to another episode of the Vinimark Podcast. Now with South Africa in the middle of an alcohol sale lockdown, conversations over non-alcoholic wine or alcohol-free wine or de-alcoholized wine have popped up more than usual, which has in turn forced many die-hard wine lovers to explore deep, dark, uncharted philosophical territory. And they're having to take a look in the mirror and ask, would I still love wine if it didn't have the alcohol? Or who would I become if I started drinking this sort of wine? And would I need a new circle of friends and start wearing pleather? Now, for many people, the answer has been a flat-out, emphatic no. For me personally, it was more pure curiosity that led me to take the plunge. I kept asking myself, what is that? Is it even possible to get alcohol out? And if you can do that, what else do you take with you? I mean, we've all learned from watching Lord of the Rings that if you dabble in the dark arts, it eventually takes its toll on your soul. So, to demystify it all, I have the privilege of chatting to the head winemaker at Darling Cellars, Pieter Neil Rousseau, and also to Cape winemaster and senior winemaker at Spear, Anton Swartz. So, Pieter Neil, I know that Darling Cellars have an entire range of de-alcoholized wines on the market right now. But then out there are also non-alcoholic wines, there are alcohol-free wines, and these titles can, in some cases, be misleading. I know in Finland, something is considered non-alcoholic if it has as much as 2.8% alcohol. That would be a little too rich for my blood. And so I'm hoping you can disentangle the jargon and then help us understand the difference between the various terms.
If you look at the different wine classes, natural wine or still wine, it's anything below 16.5%. If you go to low alcohol wine, it's any product that is below 4.5%. And then if you go to de-alcoholized wine, it must be below 0.5%. And if it's alcohol free, the alcohol must be below 0.05%.
That 0.05, I understand that's quite difficult to achieve.
At this stage, it's still, I think, a trying process. I haven't seen really successful alcohol-free wines yet. It's not that it's not going to happen. It's going to happen in some time. But to go to 0.05% alcohol wine product, it's going to take some time. I don't think, not in the next 4 or 5 years.
So is it fair to say then that when we see things on the market as alcohol-free, they probably haven't gone through fermentation?
I think there's different ways of producing an alcohol-free product, but at this stage I would say it's a mixture between wine and grape juice to go to that low alcohol, I would say.
So now I know we've been talking about this a lot because there's been an alcohol ban here in South Africa, and it makes the topic feel like a recent development, but actually, alcoholic beverages have been de-alcoholized for up to 150 years. I know the temperance movement were big on making sure that communion wine didn't have alcohol in it, and prohibition in the 1920s, where they would boil beer to try and get the alcohol out there. So this has been going on a while. For you guys at Darling Cellars, what drove your product development? What demands showed you that this was worth doing?
Times are changing, the world are changing. People, the consumers are looking for something different each day. And wine is not going to stay behind. We have to change a little bit on wine every day. The consumers today, they're looking for something easier to drink, something lighter to drink. They're looking to healthier lifestyles. With the new laws that are going to implement with a zero tolerance, that's going to have an effect. People want to enjoy a glass of wine with their food at a restaurant, or they want to have a nice party with their friends and enjoy a glass of wine. But with the new laws, it's not going to be possible. There's a lot of people that want to enjoy wine, but for some reason, for medical reasons maybe, they cannot enjoy the alcohol. Other people have other problems. But with this de-alcoholized, they can enjoy wine. They can enjoy their favorite Sauvignon Blanc or their Shiraz or any other variety for that matter.
Anton, Spear have recently released a range of low alcohol wines, which is a little bit different to non-alcoholic or alcohol-free. Tell me a little bit about the strategy that went into choosing a 5.5% product over, say, a 0.5% product.
The inception of the 5.5, I would say, started around about 2 years ago, When we got queries from our customers overseas that wanted a lower alcohol wine to sell to their clients. So then we did a lot of benchmark tastings with wines that is being sold, say, in Europe. So it included wines from Germany, Spain, also the USA, Italy, and we came to a sweet spot of making a wine with a little bit more alcohol, and we did the experiment and all that, and then we said, listen here, 5.5 is our sweet spot. Because at 5.5 you get the added benefit of having 50% lower in alcohol than one of our normal wines and 50% less in kilojoules. So it sounded health-wise better, but also you have got the kick of you drinking some wine.
Because we have talked a lot about why alcohol needs to be removed from wine, but yeah, we haven't talked too much about what happens when you do. Now, so for those of you at home, Anton is a 4-time member of the Springbok Sapers, or otherwise the South African team that went to the World Championships, the World Cup of blind wine tasting. So as a man who fully understands flavor and flavor development. So my question, Anton, to you is, alcohol isn't just there for the buzz, it plays a whole bunch of roles in flavor development. Can you tell us more about that?
For me, in layman's terms, is that alcohol is the glue that keeps the wine together. And as soon as you remove alcohol, you lose your viscosity, you lose your body, you lose your aroma, and you lose your tannin structure in the wine. And that also influences your flavor profile, your astringency, and your sourness and your sweetness. So for me, it keeps the wine together, and you need a little bit of alcohol in your wine to make it palatable.
So, Peter, Neil, you guys have brought out a product that is obviously 5% less alcohol than the Spear product, for example. So you must have faced some of the same sensory challenges. What is your take on how the product has changed with the alcohol removed?
To produce a wine at 0.5%, it's a big challenge. Like Anton said, you need the alcohol, you need to keep the wine together. But with the technology available today, I think it's possible to produce a wine at 0.5. Well, we've seen it now. And with all the different methods available out there, and also the different great products that's available out there, you can build or rebuild a wine when you take the alcohol out.
So that actually brings me to my next question, because I wanted to ask almost a philosophical question to you both, which comes a little bit out of the dairy industry. Now, there has, over the last couple of decades, been a big push towards alternative milks and nut milks and rice milks, and like, can you even call them milk? Not sure, the jury's still out. But for a lot of these products, the problem that producers have faced is that the alternatives just don't have the body or the mouthfeel, and they're always trying to add in fat from various sources, be it vegetable oil or a particularly rich nut source. So now the philosophical question here is, if we had something that had the same sensory properties as alcohol, but without being alcohol, when we add that into a wine, does it stop being wine, or is that something that we could look at to try and minimize what happens when you de-alcoholize wine?
When you don't start with a wine base to produce a product with a 0.5%, or for that matter, a 0.05%, it's not going to be a wine anymore if it's not grape based. That's for me, that's it. As soon as you start with water and then you add flavorings like a Sauvignon Blanc essence or whatever, for me that's not wine anymore, it's a beverage. You have to start with a grape-based product, you have to start with wine, and then you reduce the alcohol, because that, at the end of the day, that's the process. We're talking about alcohol reduction, not building up a wine from water base.
And even if you look at the legislation, if you go with a non-alcoholic, de-alcoholized, low wine, according to your legislation, you can call it varietal, specific like Chenin Blanc, Shiraz, and Sauvignon Blanc. You can name the vintage, but it needs to be certified before the time. So when you start making your wine, you need to submit all your documentation. So you're going to harvest the 2021 Chenin Blanc, Darling, or Stellenbosch. So you start there. So you've got all your criteria in place, basically, to call it a wine. And then you go through the whole submission process. You submit your samples to DAF and all that. And then at the end of the day, you can call it a 2021 Chenin Blanc, but you can't certify it as a wine. So for me, although it's grape-based, I think if you go lower than 4.5, for me also it's a beverage made from grapes.
At 0.05, it's going to be very, very difficult to call it, or to have varietal and wine in the same word. It's not going to
It's
be.
still very experimental.
No.
It was even with the samples that we've tasted from abroad. There's so much added stuff, artificial stuff, that you need to add it to make it feel like wine. But when you taste it, it's not. So.
And how would you say South Africa is stacking up in your benchmark experiments?
I can just say out of the benchmark that we did, there's some producers that gets it right, but there's some producers that, I don't want to say don't get it right, but there's still some school money that needs to be paid. It's like South African wine. You get good South African wine and you don't get, So there's pretty decent stuff on the market, but it's up to the consumer, what the consumer wants and the taste profile at the end of the day.
I think there's in South Africa, it's in the baby shoes, definitely.
Yeah.
There's huge potential for this. If you compare us to the rest of the world, Torres in Spain, some wineries in Germany, in New Zealand, in California, they've been working this on 20-25 years. Torres in Spain, it's enormous, but still most of them focus on the 0.5%, because that's, I would say, more or less the sweet spot. But the development is there to go 0.05. But in South Africa, definitely baby shoes, but the potential is big out there. It's big.
So we have been talking about what happens when you remove alcohol. Peter Neil, can you tell us a little bit about the actual technical process of how the alcohol has been removed?
Alcohol can be removed or lowered by different methods. You can basically harvest early, so you get a low alcohol and then reduce that with the addition of grape juice. You can use reverse osmosis, reducing the alcohol there, or you can use the spinning cone technology to reduce the alcohol. We use the spinning cone. We've done a lot of different trials, and we found that the quality and the sweet spot that we need with the spinning cone is working very, very well. The spinning cone technology is basically, in the easy terms, it's removing all the volatile components in the wine, and then basically rebuilding just the wine without the alcohol. So you remove the volatile components under vacuum. It's a very fast and very easy process. It's quality-wise really, really good. And then later on, you basically use that flavor components and then just building the wine again.
So I know the original techniques involved using a lot of heat to almost boil the alcohol out, and that absolutely destroyed the flavor. So how is the spin and cone technology an improvement on that?
The spinning cone, they call it the low temperature distilling, but it's more of a vacuum. So it's not distilling, it's not high temperatures, it's anything between 27 and 32 degrees Celsius, but it's much more about the vacuum. So the vacuum is capturing all the volatile components and preserving that in alcohol, then rather boiling or distilling the components off.
So the lack of heat is key. Yeah.
Definitely. And the other thing also with the spinning cone, it's a quite fast process. If you compare to the other methods, not that I'm saying reverse osmosis is not right or the other methods, but with the spinning cone, the wine basically goes through two processes. First, taking off the flavor. The second, taking off the alcohol, and then you've got the three components. So only two processes, where with like reverse osmosis, you have to put the product more than once, sometimes 4 or 5 times through the process to reduce the alcohol to the desired level.
I heard you mentioning earlier that the one technique is to simply add grape juice in and essentially dilute the beverage down. From a flavor perspective, that seems logically to be a far sweeter drink.
For sure, because the grape juice will have about 150, 200 grams of sugar, and you have to add at least 50 to 60% to really go down with the alcohol. But then it's a chemistry that you have to get in balance, because the grapes that you harvest early is going to have a high acidity, and it's going to be very difficult. And now you add the sugar, and to really get to that sweet spot where it's right, it's not always going to be the right alcohol. The taste profile might be right, but the alcohol is going to be too high maybe, and then you have to add more sugar, and then everything is out of balance. So it's a very tricky method to use there.
So another advantage of the spinning cone, what I'm hearing you say, is that you can at least produce what is recognizable as a dry wine. Because I think a lot of people see non-alcoholic as a sweet drink, as a fruit juice, but you can achieve a level of dryness that is recognizable as wine.
Oh, for sure. Also with this de-alcoholized wine, I think the most important part of this production is to start with a good wine. You can't start with a mediocre or bad wine. When you reduce the alcohol, you will enhance the good components, but you will also enhance the bad components. And the bad is most of the times much more than the good components. So you have to start with a really good wine to reduce the alcohol, and then by rebuilding it, using again the alcohol, a little bit of sugar, some tannins, you will basically reconstruct the wine to have more or less the same mouthfeel and structure as the base wine.
I just want to add to that, to what Peter Neal said, is that a lot of people think that currently in the industry we've got a lot of surplus wine. Or the perception is that I've spoken to customers and all that, they think you can take any wine, de-alcoholize it, and you've got a de-alcoholized wine. That's not the case. With us, for the 5.5, we had 2 years of research and development where you had to go to specific sites, specific blocks, light the soils that is sandy, that produces wines that's less acid, low in alcohol, clonal selection, canopy management. So you've got a lot of stuff that you need to look at to eventually make your low alcohol wine. Where de-alcoholized and low alcohol wine comes true to the place of existence is when you go through the whole winemaking technique. You've got your fermentation and all that. That actually changes the whole consistency of your wine, because if you just use grape juice, that's a sugary syrup and you'll taste it. But you get complexity and you get layers and all that. And with the wine staying on a fine lees and you de-alcoholize it, you eventually get the essence of you tasting a wine.
You mentioned it starts in the vineyard. I think that's important for...
It is.
It's the most important part.
Yeah.
You have to start with our wines. We use our reserve wines. So that is our medium tier. But it's site specific, it's soil specific. We try to get that essence of Darling in a bottle. So you can't just, like I said, you can't just use a normal red wine or a normal pinotage. You have to look for something that's got substance. It must have structure. It must have the length. There must be something special to this wine. By just taking a normal wine and put it through the process and hope it's going to turn out good, it's not going to happen. It's going to be even worse.
And that's also the reason why it's de-alcoholized wine is an expensive product. That's why it's run about, say, to the 65 to 80 rand category, because there's a lot of research and development that goes into it to produce a stellar wine in the bottle.
It's a normal bottle of wine, and then you have to reduce the alcohol, so it's an extra action on that, and then you have to bottle it. And we had the talk this morning. This product, I think maybe because it's in baby shoes still, it's nerve-wracking because there's no alcohol to preserve. Because that's the other big thing of alcohol, is preserving the product. And now suddenly you don't have a product or a product that don't have alcohol in to preserve. And you have to work fast with it to make sure that it's healthy, it's clean, and put in a bottle under safe conditions.
Is it possible to recoup some of those costs by selling off that alcohol to other industries, or even to the wine industry?
On the spinning cone, you cannot use or reuse it in the wine industry, because the whole process, under vacuum, you're taking with the alcohol sulfites and stuff, so that's not going to work. They normally use it for industrial alcohol, so they basically distill that alcohol again and then use it for medicinal or industrial use again. So that on that side, yes, that is possible.
I think we've covered some good ground here, but I wanted to finish off by having us think big, blue sky, there are clearly some challenges in product development, and we've got an amazing road to walk here. So what are some of the crazier technologies or experimentations that you're aware of that we will begin to benefit from maybe in 5 or 6 or 10 years? Are there things that will take this to the next level, or are the wines that you guys are producing as good as it gets?
Technology in the wine industry will always change. From the viticultural side up into the enology, there's always new technology going out. I think we're only in the beginning of this de-alcoholized product. It's definitely going to change. There's definitely new methods out there. There's new technology that they're busy with researching out. I think in the next 5 or 6 years, definitely there's going to be a new product. But for a winemaker, you will always be the die-hard wine drinker, but you have to adapt. If you're not going to adapt to the industry or to the world, you will be left behind.
Yeah, I think also that we will follow what the rest of the world is doing. I know Torres, they're doing experimental stuff. We've tasted some of the wines, so with technology that they've got, we will soon to follow. And I think that we, as a South African wine industry, we are also very innovative, and the people that we work with is not stagnant, so they want to better the process, and we make good wine. I just think that when we're tasting de-alcoholized and low wine, you need to put another cap on your hat. Because if you're a serious wine drinker or cab wine master or head winemaker, cellar master, you need to change your mindset about drinking low alcohol wine. And usually when I say to people that when you drink these wines, you can't start with Sauvignon Blanc at 13% and then go to the alcoholized wine. So this would need to be your first tipple during the day to start, and then eventually drinking to higher alcohol levels. But you need to change your mindset. It is a mindset change. I've tried some de-alcoholized beer. I'm not very fond of it, but it tastes like beer, and I think the stuff that we've got on the market is quite good. So yeah, you just need to put another hat on.
In wine, there's a product for any occasion. That's the big thing, and you have to remember that if you want to be a serious wine drinker, there's serious wines. If you want to enjoy wine but you cannot handle the alcohol, then the de-alcoholized or the low alcohol wines will work for you.
I think for me personally, I'm aware that it's not an either-or thing. If you're starting, especially in Christmas holidays, you know, the braai starts at 2 and then the drinking starts then, and you're still up at 11. That's a long day. And so it's something that I could possibly build into my regimen throughout the day. You're delaying that inevitable babos by reducing alcohol, rather than going, okay, now I'm moving over to de-alcoholized wine, and that's me for the rest of my life. I think for me it's interesting to say, okay, this is something that I can have in my cellar as an alternative. Well, I want to thank you both for your time. I feel like my mind has been expanded a little bit just listening to you guys talk, so thank you for that. And we have reached the end of another episode of the Vinimark Podcast. And if you at home really enjoyed this episode, then consider subscribing to the channel so that you can join us for more conversations with experts around wine commerce, wine science, cellar mastery, marketing, and the rising trends amidst the industry's more adventurous pioneers.